It says you're live with the correct your. So that's nice. Happy Monday, everyone. Today, I want to look at some mixer boards because I love mixers. I'm a weirdo. I can look at a mixer board and say, that's the one for me. Yeah. So we're gonna look at this from a few different perspectives. Let me click over to my thing here. Now we're gonna be using Sweetwater as always. Just to disclose, I one don't live in the U.S. and two have no affiliation with Sweetwater. There is going to be no affiliate links or anything like that. I am a dealer for Soundcraft, Presonus, Samson, a few brands. I'm going to try to be unbiased in my opinions and recommendations because of that, though I want to put that disclaimer out there. But I always recommend, if you can't, let me rephrase that. I always recommend, if you are able to, purchase your equipment from your local dealer, because then you have somewhere to go if you have any problems. And then you are helping make sure that you have a local dealer the next time you do need something, right? Yeah, it's handy to be able to go to Amazon or Sweetwater, click a button, have it delivered to your door. I've done it before. I'll probably do it again. But it's, as somebody who owns a local music store, I recommend supporting your local music store. Anyway, I'm going to get off my high horse and just look at some mixer boards. So, we're going to be looking at it from three different perspectives. We're going to be looking at a DJ, an acoustic musician, a small ensemble, and a full band. So, we've got some must-haves. Big one, enough channels. And enough mic channels specifically. Okay? So, for a DJ, we need to assume at least 2 mic channels. Ideally more, but at least 2. And that means we need 4 total channels, more than likely. I did a whole rant in my previous stream about how you probably want to be set up for mono for the vast majority of DJ gigs. But in terms of your equipment, make sure you're set up to run stereo. And stereo uses 2 channels left and right. So we need minimum 4 channels total and 2 mic channels, ideally. Now, if you're a guitar and vocal, well, you need at least 1 mic channel. Right? Like, why would you need more? Well, if you're in a small group. But if you're just doing solo, we're probably going to need a single microphone channel. If you are doing keyboard and voice, we may need more channels. Because again, you can run your keyboard mono. Almost every digital piano I've ever dealt with has 2 outputs on the back. One is labeled L/M, and the other is labeled R, or vice versa sometimes. But that means if you're only using one output, the keyboard itself will output in mono. Generally speaking, that's all you need. So we need minimum 2 channels, but ideally 3 or more. But again, we're talking about must-haves right now. Okay. Now, for a small group, let's say we've got guitar, 2x voice, and a keyboard, right? That kind of thing, right? Just guessing. Again, now we need 2 mic for vocal. Now, must-haves. Depending on which one of these we're talking about, I would say effects. Mainly reverb. Okay? Do not worry that one mixer board has 10 effects and another one has 100. What you're going to end up doing is you're going to set your effects channel to reverb and probably leave it there forever. Now, it can sometimes be nice to have digital delay, right? If you need that kind of thing, we then want likely an effects send, ideally multiple. So for an acoustic musician, I would say your main thing is to make sure you have reverb. Same thing for this small group here, reverb. Now, to me, those are must-haves. For a DJ, that would be a nice-to-have. Full band, our numbers start growing. So we need mics for 2 guitars and then vocals, likely, let's say 3, right? Let's say we need 3 vocal mics. You might need more, but we'll just say 3. This is where we have to start making some choices. How many mic channels do you want to put on your drums? So, I have done live sound using 4 microphones on drums. I've done as little as 2. Don't recommend that unless you have to. But I've done 4. Ideal. So, drum mics, I would say minimum 4. Ideal, I believe 7. So we've got kick, snare, high, overhead, right? So we've got 4 is our minimum. Kick, snare, overhead. That will work for the vast majority of events, to be perfectly honest. I like miking up my toms. That means tom 1, 2, 3, 4. That's where we get into 8. And then if you can, potentially, and depending on the type of band, maybe hi-hat. But let's say 8 to 9. But I would say a minimum of 4. So that means our total that we would need to do 2 guitars and vocals, and then for bass, I'm going to assume we need 1 mic input because we're using a DI of some kind and want to use the XLR in. So we need 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we need a total of 10, say 10 to 20, right? In this configuration, it's going to be somewhere around there. That adds up real quick. So choices and sacrifices have to be made, right? We'll get to that. So those are our must-haves, in my opinion. Now, if you want, for these full band situation kind of things, if you want to use outboard gear, you will likely want either a robust effects. So by that I mean able to do 2. right? You probably don't need more than two, honestly, in terms of like the digital effects side of things. Reverb and delay. You as the sound tech, whether it be this for your own band or if you're doing sound for somebody else, shouldn't be making the calls of adding things like distortion, flanger, phaser, unless the band has specifically requested it. Hey, can you throw some chorus on my acoustic guitar? That might be a thing you need. I would say that's a nice to have. Reverb for an acoustic guitar, more important. But somebody might like chorusing effects and things like that. Having a dual effects engine of some sort or having multiple effects sends becomes far more important here. And if you want to use outboard gear, inserts. I'm going to call that a maybe. That's why I'm putting a question mark there. If you haven't used an insert before, we'll get to that when we get to these bigger ones. Now, let's get into some nice to haves. USB, multi-channel, question mark, because we're going to get back to that. This is a big one for me. IEC power or USB power. I don't like wall warts and power bricks. If I can get away with not having them, I will. Yeah. And then other effects and things like that. I would say these are falling under my nice to have. A big one that could be a deal breaker for a lot of people, compressors. Having compressors built in is really nice. So let's look at this DJ one first, shall we? So we go into analog mixers. Now, we only need a couple channels, right? Now, if I go here and I look up 10 channel, and it has 4. Oh, my brain. 4 channel, they had 10 options. There we go. I'm back with the tour. You're going to find a big variety of stuff. Oh, let me add one more thing to do nice to haves. XLR out. If I'm choosing between two mixers, they both have, this is what I mean by nice to haves. If both mixers have all of these, or let me rephrase that, all of these in our must-haves. So in this case, DJs, you probably don't need the reverb effects and stuff, but every now and then if you're doing like karaoke and stuff, this might be mandatory, right? If you're doing karaoke, make sure you get effects on there. Ideally with compressors, because you're going to be dealing with a lot of amateur singers who don't know how to do mic control. Anyway, if they have all the must-haves, then we pick based on nice-to-haves or price, right? For me, paying extra for easier to power stuff, USB recording, I should add in here, / playback. Those are two different things, though. We'll get into that in a second. IEC power, right? Not having a power brick, stuff like that. That's going to win out. But if I have to choose between a mixer that has what I need and doesn't, that happens to have IEC power, right? Like the traditional, I know in the UK, I think they call it a kettle lead. I'm going to pick the one that has all the specs I need. But if I'm deciding between stuff that already has all my must-haves, then, what other features does it have? Or are those extra features worth the price? So clicking back into here, we've got, say, this guy here. Now, Mackie, this one has Onyx preamps. The VLZ didn't used to, so that's sweet. So this here, decent little mixer. We've got 2 mic inputs with gain. Now, I didn't talk about EQ because generally speaking, we're going to always be looking at units that have equalizers. This one is just 2-band, which is unfortunate, but in this form factor, I can let that go. Now, main out. Here we go. Line in. I don't like that layout, but I understand it. So for a DJ, this would actually be probably enough. This tape in, proceed with caution, but you can use it. Because tape in, oh, and it has its own. The fact that the tape in has its own volume control, to me, this, I would almost consider this a 6-channel mixer. I think for a DJ, this would be 90% of what you need. However, we've got a power brick, right? We don't have any USB or anything like that. We don't have any compressors. We don't have any effects. We do have phantom power, which to me is a must-have, but it's to the point where it's like I've never buy a mixer without it, so I don't know. I wouldn't even. I don't even consider mixers that don't have phantom power to be mixers at that point. But well, that's not 100% true. I digress. But for a DJ, this would work 100%. Now, another nice to have though would be going to something that has XLR outputs. Okay, so that could be on your hit list if you're a DJ. This one to me, now I am an ART dealer, full disclosure, I've used this one. I would take this one over the Mackie. Even though Mackie generally has a reputation of being a better brand. Well, not a better brand, but they've been in the mixer world longer. Here's why. I love this mixer from a DJ perspective and am considering getting one. There's one in my room over here, but it's not mine. My fiance has one. She needed a good, robust setup for doing conference calls and stuff for school. So I hooked her up with one of these and no regrets. So here's the big reason that I love this mixer for DJs. A couple things. One, has that nice aux in there. That's the equivalent of like your tape in kind of stuff. This headset stuff, useless to a DJ. The record source thing is fine. So this can technically be used to record. It is 2 channels. So if you remember, I mentioned on here USB recording / playback multi-channel. This is 2-channel. Now, multi-channel on a mixer that's this small basically does mean 2-channel, because it can do, your records your left and your right. So if I say wanted to record 2 channels on here, what you would do is you would pan channel 1 all the way to the left, pan channel 2 all the way to the right, record them separately, and then mono them both, and bam! Now we have 2 channels recorded. But it does have that. Now, when you get up to, say, a 16-channel mixer, the multi-channel aspect becomes a bit different because most USB recording is done in stereo because it's way, way, way cheaper to do. And they just attach a small ADC to the main, and whatever the main is getting sent out. But I digress. That's all well and good. Being able to record, fine. This is the big thing. So if you are a DJ, ideally, you are using a mixer like this with your DJ controller. So you plug your DJ controller into channel 3 and 4 here. You've got your mics plugged into channel 1 and 2. And then you run your left, right out here to your mains. Again, I wish these were XLR because then I need less adapters. But at this price point, I'm not going to complain. Now, your DJ controller self-destructs. Somebody spills a beer on it, whatever. You have a few options now. You have your aux in / MP3 in here. So you can run, an iPad. You can run direct out from your laptop. If you have one of those little like Starlight controllers, stuff like that, you can run that into there. Awesome. If you don't, now I wish this was USB-C, but these are an older design. I'm hoping they update it. But this here This one's for power. This one is powered by your computer. So as long as your computer is fairly robust, you technically don't need a second, like a power brick for this. I probably would power brick it most of the time, but you could run this straight off of your computer because it only takes 5-volt, 500 milliamps, etc. And usually, I think it's 5-volt 2A is like your usual USB brick. I've got one beside me. What does this guy do? This is a USB-C one. 5-volt 3 amp. Cool. So yeah, you can use a brick. But if you run it off of your PC, you go into your DJ software, you select this is your output for your main, and then you select your headphone jack on your laptop as your headphone. You have to use your mouse and keyboard essentially to DJ, but now you have a proper DJ setup without any extra wiring. In terms of you can cue songs, you can listen to them, etc. But you have direct output heading to here without using any splitter cables or anything like that. You just need a USB cable. So from a backup perspective for a DJ, that is wonderful. One cable solves a whole bunch of problems, but as you're using it normally, right, if you're using this with a DJ controller or mixer or whatever your setup is, you can run stereo or, again, L mono. Hey, run them into there. Put your mics into here. You can have an auxiliary MP3 player of sorts running there, but then the whole thing acts as a backup. So I will say, like I said, it's tricky because I'm an ART dealer, so it feels a little little disingenuous to be like, no, trust me, get the one that I happen to sell. But I do think feature-wise for a DJ, this thing is a very, very good choice. That all being said, I am always impressed at the size. The form factor of these little Mackies is impressive. Because the ART one, it's small, but like they're knocking out a full row or 2 rows, I think, of knobs, and then just shrinking it even further. So this Mackie here is actually really impressive for its size, but that ART one is to a different level. Now, I love these Shure mixers. Don't get one unless you know that you need it or want it. These won't help you from a DJ perspective unless you are running your mics into the microphone input on your controller and you want the robustness of this adding more microphones. That's kind of the only point in these for DJs. Like I quite like them, but they're for microphones only. Like I wouldn't use them for line stuff. Same thing here, right? These are mostly made, although this one has aux ins. Do I take that back on this particular unit? Now I think at 341 there's better options. But that is actually quite nice to be able to have 4 mic inputs and then these aux ins, right? If you're using RCAs, and then it's a single output. So do keep that in mind. This will mono everything all the time, always. But for this form factor or for like installs, right? Because I believe these ones are rack mountable. And they come with the rack mount. I have one of those ears. And hey, IEC. But yeah, 341. Yeah, I wouldn't bother unless you're doing it as an install. But yeah, like I said, that ART one, I'm not saying it just because I deal with them. I think the Mackie is very, very good for its form factor. But if you can deal with a slightly bigger mixer, that ART is going to be a step up from it. So yeah, that would be what I would normally point somebody to if you were DJing. Now, if you are I will say, live sound mixers, analog, digital. Okay. It used to be a lot of sites, annoyingly, would have their analog mixers separate from analog mixers with effects, or USB mixers and things like that. And they would just cram them all into different categories, and I hate it. So I'm glad they did it this way. Now, another thing you can do, especially for my DJ friends out there, because we're all cheap in some respects, is you can go just like, and this is a good thing to just check here. Once you start doing this, where it's like, I'm going to go from cheapest to start and then going up from there, you're going to see some good deals and some stuff that you don't need, right? Like these little line mixers and stuff, you don't need any of this stuff. This isn't going to do what you need. Something like these can be really useful, right? This one is set up for streaming, USB connectivity, that kind of stuff. These are more for, and I would actually recommend these if you're doing streaming, because they will work. You can, if you're, say, doing like a DJ live show and you want to be able to run the music from, say, your laptop and your controller or mixer into a streaming computer, something like this can work really well because it has the balanced line ins and all this stuff, and then has USB output, I assume, although these are all broken, thanks Sweetwater, and then single microphone in. But I don't know if I would ever bother buying a microphone with a mixer with a single mic, unless I was using it for only streaming. But even then, you have a guest on, well, now you need something different, right? And that VLZ that we looked at earlier, that one comes up there. Now Soundcraft, they start poking up when we were looking in this, because this is a 5-channel, which is a little odd. Again, single, but with USB, single microphone, but with USB connectivity. So that's kind of nice. I would go, usually as a DJ, I'd recommend still having 2 microphone inputs. There are exceptions to that, right? Like I run those Phoenix Pro mics that let me plug multiple microphones into 1/4-inch jack. If you haven't seen them before, these jacks here, like this, that is a combo jack. So you can plug both your XLR or a 1/4-inch into it, which is really nice. Carrying on though with this is that Mackie form factor. We're missing some mic inputs compared to it, but we do have more than one line in. That's kind of nice, right? So as long as you don't need multiple mic inputs, this might be fine. Like if you're only running one, or say you're running your controller and your controller has a microphone input, you can use that for the minor amount of announcements you're doing, and then use this for, say, speeches and stuff. You've got inputs for your controller, and then if you're using like an aux kind of thing of like iPad or tablet or even your phone for, yeah. But then here's what I love. I wish more companies did this on their smaller form factors. Wish I thought of this before. I love the mixers, I guess, that I have in these more compact situations. Soundcraft puts XLRs. Oh. Because yes, they might be a little more expensive in some cases. They might have a slightly different form factor than you like, but not having to carry around extra cables, right? Because usually I have to then use TRS to XLR out if I want to run longer lines, and that's just a pain in the butt. And then you forget one and realize that you have to run everything mono and daisy chain everything like completely across the stage and blah 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 blah. Yamaha thankfully thought of this too, and they put in the XLRs. Yeah. For me, XLR is a big deal, so that might encourage me to move to something like that. Now, this Yamaha, I love me Yamaha mixers. You'll always see me recommending Yamaha, even though I don't carry them myself. This one for compact form factor, we've got digital effects. See what I mean? Reverb and delay. They know. They get it. They understand, right? So for a DJ, if you need a couple inputs, this might be exactly what you need. As well, moving on from the DJ side, if you are a acoustic musician, right? We need minimum 1 mic channel, ideally 2, but we can live with that. And extra channels. Oh, my phone is vibrating at me and has something stuck to it. Who's this? Oh, I'll reply to that when I'm done. It is not time sensitive-ish. Anyway, ideally 3+, but we can get away with less. And then we need reverb. Trust me, you need reverb if you're doing any kind of live sound stuff for acoustic guitar and voice, or keyboard and voice. So this here, right? I was just talking about this one for the DJ side of life. This is probably pretty much perfect for that type of situation. Now, the effects option here, I like and I don't like at the same time. These are just on-off buttons. And then you adjust the level of effect. So you can decide if it's sending to the effects unit and then how loud the effects unit is. More robust mixers have an effects send knob, so you can turn the effect level for each channel up or down individually. This is on or off individually. But usually you're going to want them very, very similar because, let's face it, you want your guitar to sound like it's in the same room as you. Unless you're using it as a special effect of, like, I want a ton of delay on my guitar, but then I want, like, a little bit of reverb on my voice. Can't do that on this. But something like that might be just perfect for a singer-songwriter kind of thing. Now, there are some of these Behringer ones here. Behringer was one that I used to not advise too much, but they've really stepped up their quality control as of the last few years. And especially compared to some of the like Amazon no-name brand specials or AliExpress stuff, this is going to be far more robust. This one here, monitor send and effect send. Very nice to see. Now, I don't believe this has an effects engine. What I mean by that is you need an external effects unit to run this, which is unfortunate, especially because, main outs with XLR, great. They've got IEC power. Oh, everything about this is awesome. On top of all of that, they have compressors on each of the channels. The only thing this thing is missing is, and it's a USB mixer. The only thing it's missing is the, that's why it's in this price category. It's like, this is way too robust to be this inexpensive. There is no reverb or delay on it. So I would probably push somebody a bit to spend a little more. Now, this is one I personally own. I have the Samson Mixpad, which I am a Samson dealer, which is one of the reasons I knew about it, one of the reasons I have it. It has a whole bunch of different effects that, yeah, technically, yes, there's a whole bunch of them, but it's just like, so echo plus reverb is, 9 variations of that, not like it's kind of, there's 100, which is fine. I don't need 100 effects. I set mine to usually I do medium hall or something. Probably I think I do small hall or small room or large hall. I think are the two I tend to aim towards. Probably small room mostly. I haven't used it in a while for that type of stuff. Big thing I love, 2 compressors. Things I don't love about it, no monitor send. It has a second Well, sort of no monitor send. It does have a mix 2 output, but you can't decide how much or how little of everything is going to mix to. It is just a separate volume knob. So you set your main, and then you can turn that up a little bit. Not ideal, but can be fine. You won't be able to adjust how much guitar or how much vocal you can set in your microphones. It's the only thing I wish that this had was that they just did one extra set of knobs on it for that, but I can live with it. Now, this is where you get into some wonkiness. It tells you that it is a 12 channel. Now, when you see 124, that usually means 12, what was it, 12 channel 4 bus. Every company does it a little bit differently. But this is actually 12 channels because each of these here are stereo channels that are 2 channels each. So there's something to keep in mind. You'll see sometimes a 5-channel mixer and you only see one mic input, and you're like, how can that be a 5-channel mixer? That's what they're getting at there. But yeah, so that's the one I personally use. I do think there's some merit to, like, if this Behringer one here had reverb on it, although that's another demo unit. Damn, guys. Eight channel, 3 mic input. It's always weird when there's only 3 mic inputs. I always find that a little strange. Like the odd numbers. I mean, it's not that there's anything wrong with having odd numbers. Demo unit. How many of these things did they demo? Now, does this one here have reverb? It does not appear so, but it has everything else I would like. Oh, it's 3 and 4. What? Oh, we'll get to that with some of the other stuff. Anyway, so yeah, that's the kind of stuff I would look into if I were in a duo or a band. And then, like, even then, looking into our small group, if you have 2 vocalists and you need, again, 2 mics, vocal, reverb, something like this guy, right? Very similar to that other ART mixer, but this one has a small little effects unit over here. All you need. Has effects send, doesn't have monitor send. It's the only thing. I should add that to our small group. You can kind of get away with not having it there. Monitor. Now, this will also be known as a pre-fader aux. Here's what I mean by that. Pre-fader, I mentioned this in one of my previous videos, means when you adjust the aux send, the main fader doesn't affect it. So you can set your monitors before you set your mains, which is how I've started sound checking now. I've gotten into a habit of checking monitors before I do mains, so that I can make sure if I start getting any weird feedback and stuff, then I know whether it's the monitors or mains. At least that's been my experience. But anyway, so that's something we're kind of looking for here, is having a pre-fader aux. Now, for the full band, we're going to want multiple aux sends. For a small group, you probably only need one, right? Now, this mixer here, I'm going to go on a rant. Behringer, I hope you watch this, even though I'm going to kind of crap on one of your products a little bit. I have the version 1 of these. If you ever find a version 1, don't buy it. They are on a V2. There was a known issue that I don't know if Behringer ever acknowledged, but a lot of people, a few months to a few years after they were out of warranty, the effects engine started to oscillate and cause some really weird issues. And you couldn't, even if you muted the effects, the engine itself was making the sound, and even muting effects to main, I couldn't get it to stop doing it. But I believe it was the effects engine. So they've swapped out the effects engine on the new ones. I wish this should be the answer. For most small groups and even potentially small bands, we have a monitor out, we have internal effects, we have faders for each channel, and it all fits nicely in a rack. Oh, this was my favorite mixer until mine self-destructed. And it's hard for me to recommend it because mine self-destructed. We have 8 microphones. At this price point, that's actually a rarity. We have effects. We have, like as I mentioned, we have the monitor out, which I believe would be, monitor here. It does have effects / aux returns and whatnot. XLR outputs. Phantom power and power being on the back is a little annoying. I don't like it when they do that for rack gear. But at $200 American, like this thing should be the answer. Like it needs 3 things. 1, acknowledgement of the issues of the original, in my opinion. But yeah. 2, add compressors. Even if it ups the price a little bit, give us the single knob compressor on some of these. Not on all of them, but on some of the channels. And yeah, that's kind of it. I think we just need those two things to make this like a perfect mixer. Is give us some compressors. I believe it has inserts. Yeah, it does have inserts. So if you have rack mountable compressors, which I do. So again, I was planning on using one of these in one of my like quick setup mixers and having just everything pre-wired in, everything labeled, everything set up nicely, and then it just was giving me some grief. So something like that should be the right answer for your group, like your small ensembles, but unfortunately it's hard to recommend because of the issues I had with mine. Now this Yamaha here might be the answer. We got 4 mic inputs. We've got compressors on 2 of them. So for your vocalist, that's probably where you'd put those. We, I'm assuming, have a effect section. We don't. Interesting. I've been seeing this a lot on some of these brands. I'm actually surprised. This has an aux end. Doesn't say pre or post without. I can consult the manual. Yeah, it's odd. I would just expect to have reverb on a mixer like that. But I guess for spoken events, right? My brain always goes musicians, but for spoken events, microphone inputs with compressors, you might not necessarily need effects. This one has effect. Do those other ones have it and I just wasn't seeing it? Oh, maybe they do. It's over in that little LCD. I'm just blind. Okay, it's been a long year. Now, as much as I kind of finger wagged at that previous Behringer mixer that we were looking at, this one here, now that I'm noticing the effects section, unless I'm going to look back. I'm going to see if I just was an idiot and didn't see them. For compressors, we've got aux and effects, and the aux is pre and post selectable, so you can run a monitor. Yeah, just over $200. This is probably a really good option. And then Alt 3, 4. I'm assuming those are. Is this giving you subgroups at this price point? Interesting. So, I don't like that they're calling them alt. What this looks to be is something called a subgroup. Subgroups are incredibly useful, especially when you're dealing with a full band. Well, we'll get to that when we deal with the full band. But yeah, now I'm actually curious though if I'm just blind. Where were those? Oh no, they didn't. Yeah, I'm not crazy. I mean, I am, but get the version with the effects processor. It's only a couple bucks more. Why would anybody get one without? Oh, I guess if you've had experiences like mine where the effects processor self-destructs on you, that might be a reason. um, but yeah, there's a bunch of options. But yeah, those, like I said, you've got a ton of options, and then what you do is you decide, okay, it has all my must-haves, and then you go into the nice-to-haves. Compressors at this point are starting to become more and more of a must-have for me, but we're leaving into that category. Now, when it comes to your full band mixer, things start to jump. We need between 10 and 20 mic inputs, multiple aux sends, ideally dual effects engine or inserts and/or multiple aux sends to be used for effects and things like that. The big thing though is those channels, right? So intuitively we would go to 16 here and see what's there. But you're going to find a lot of these 16 channel mixers don't necessarily have everything that you need, right? I haven't looked at a PreSonus mixer today, so I'm going to look at this one. I am a PreSonus dealer, as mentioned before, so I do quite like their stuff. Ooh, so yeah, this is, I clicked on the right one to talk about a few things. So I'm actually really glad I clicked on this, and this is actually a pretty good price for what we're going to be getting at. How many is that equal? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So 12 microphone inputs. Not too bad. Not too shabby at all. That fits nicely within our 10 to 12 model here. If you only need 4 drum mics, something like this might be the answer for you. Because if we look down here, we've got 2 aux sends and an internal effects send. We've got our effects section over here. We don't have a crap ton of the effects we're not going to use. So we can run 2 monitors. I do like that they also color code them slightly different. That does make it, you can have light and dark for your monitor sends. That's kind of nice. Yeah, we have 2 monitor sends, and this does USB wise. Oops, I see. Right, some websites do that where you can hit back to get out of a screen, but if in this case I probably should hit escape. I'm gonna check. Yeah. It also, we've got XLR outputs. You're gonna find your auxes are almost always going to be quarter inch, but this is the life we lead. Downsides to a mixer like this, a lot of these channels are playing double duty. So what I mean is, it is nice that we have all of these microphone inputs, and for this price point, I actually think that's quite a few and quite good. I need to remember this next time I'm looking for like a mid form factor. But we've got all these stereo here get turned into a mono one if you use them as a mic. I almost prefer that, but you do have to keep that in mind. So if you need a certain amount of channels and you look at this and you say, okay, it has 18 channels and 12 of those are microphone inputs. Sweet. that doesn't mean you have 6 more channels to work with, because you're losing 1 channel per. Not a criticism of this board. It actually is a good setup, because then if you don't need those mic inputs, you can have them double as stereo inputs. And then there is a stereo input at the end that can be hooked up Bluetooth. Now, you may have noticed I didn't mention Bluetooth at all during the DJ portion of the evening. It's because I don't like using Bluetooth for DJ. The only purpose of Bluetooth is background music, in my opinion. In a pro audio landscape, that is the only reason you should ever be using it. Even then, a hardwire is going to be preferable. That's end of rant. But yeah, this can... oh, that's kind of fun. You can put a SD card in there and record it. From what I was seeing... Oh, rack mountable. Nice. Yeah, USB-C interface on the back here. This does operate as, I believe, an 18-channel 4-out USB audio interface. For this price, that's actually pretty sweet. And PreSonus makes good stuff. Only thing on this, and it's got now this low cut thing. These are really important. I'm glad to see those. The only other thing that I kind of wish that this had. Oh, interesting. They didn't do insert points on any of these, but they did on the first 2. Cost saving. Those insert points, I mentioned them earlier. Insert legitimately is a send and return in one jack, where it takes a TRS cable and one or the other, and you have to always check the manual, because some companies, I think, used to do it the opposite way around, is your send and one becomes your return. So you can insert, and it goes actually like basically in between the preamp and the EQ. So it just inserts, and usually a compressor right there. So that can be really nice. And yeah, they can be really nice for adding in compressors and stuff. That is the only thing I wish this had, is I wish this had a couple one knob compressors. But for what it's doing, and for being an interface and stuff at that price point, that's actually pretty impressive. Now, Yamahas are almost always my go-to, right? So this one here, now you do lose your multi-channel recording. We now have, so we've got 10 microphone inputs, which again, at this price point is actually probably right about right, but that is our minimum for a band. So if you're out there and you're a band and you're hunting for a mixer, this would be the smallest form factor I would do if you have a drummer. 10 mic inputs, you still have a few extra after that, but yeah, that's the minimum I would do. However, we've got built-in compressors on the first 8. That's great. I think I actually have... Do I have a 16? No, mine's a 20. I have like the previous version of this MG, but I think mine's a 20 channel. Instead of having mutes, for some reason they do on-off buttons. It means the same thing. But you do have a much more robust aux section here. So we've got the last one dedicated to effects, but then you can do actually, is that only 2? Aux 1 pre. No, okay, so 3 of them. I'd have to check the manual to know for sure. Looks like 3 of these can all be used as monitor sends. So you can do 3 monitor sends. That's actually pretty good. And then this has subgroups. I mentioned we were going to get back to subgroups. Subgroups on your ensembles are a nice to have. I would say, for me, full band, you want subgroups. Here's what they do. Let's say I put my drums on 8, 9, 10, 8, 9, 11, 13, right? On my last 4 mic preamps. I'm pretty sure those were them. Oh, no. So it'd be 7, 8, 9, 11. I put them on those 4. Instead of sending them to stereo, which you can here, right? I would send them to groups 3, 4. And then I would send group 3 and 4 to stereo. And now I have one fader to adjust all of my drums at once. That is very, very handy. Because if you've got kick, snare, overhead, overhead, nice, easy, up and down. Now the other uses you can, like they do usually, group outs. So you can do multi-channel recording into like a separate interface using group outs like that. I'm gonna send a stereo set of my drums to group 3 and 4, and then I'm gonna send like hard pan a few things in here, and then I have some more control over it when it hits the multi-channel. You can do some fun stuff with that. I've done it in the past. It's not perfect. Multi-channel is always better. Now we do lose all of our inserts on here, but because we have the built-in compressors, I'm okay with that. But yeah, 3 aux sends, 10 mic inputs, group like subgroups and stuff. Depending on your needs, that could be like a super good option, right? I think the PreSonus one has some definite merits, especially if you don't have a recording interface. That like that makes that $75 difference like instantly kind of worth it. If you're a sound tech though and you're looking into a board, just be aware, very, very, very few clients actually care about off the floor recording. It does come up from time to time. Just proceed with caution if it's something that you're considering. I just sold one of these to a client of mine, though they got the 12-channel version. Soundcraft does, with these FX16 and the FX12, unless I'm mistaken, it will have 16 microphone inputs. Yes. Now, that does mean you don't have as many stereo inputs, because you have to basically dedicate some of those to stereo and then you control both at the same time. But I'm okay with that. Oh yeah, foot switch for effects is nice. And then does this one have aux 1, aux 2, aux 3, aux 4? Effect bank A, effect bank B. I think you can run both 2 effects at the same time, which is sweet. Aux 1, 2, 3. So you can 3 monitor outs. Yeah, so something like this for a band could be brilliant. Now, I will say, once you start getting into, though, more inputs than about 10 or 12, it gets really, really hard to recommend this stuff, right? Now, this Soundcraft signature ones, my brother has one of the bigger brothers of that. He loves it. But once you start getting into these more expensive options, this is where digital mixers have gotten way more cost effective and cost efficient. I personally use one from Soundcraft that I really like, and I have a video on it and all that, so I'll just rant and rave about the UI series. I love them. These are really cool. Allen and Heath came out swinging, and I'm hoping it kind of pushes the next generation of the Soundcraft ones, seeing what some of their competition is doing. This is, honestly, if I was running my band's sound and I didn't have my UI 16, this is probably what I would end up looking into. The beauty of this, they save a bunch of money, they save a bunch of space by shrinking this form factor down. Now it does mean you got this annoying wall thing. Don't forget that, because nothing else would plug into this damn thing. But we've got 16 mic inputs, which at this 1200 range, that's actually really good. We've got 6 outputs for auxes, because by routing this thing digitally, they can really do a more robust subgroup, sub outputs, this kind of stuff. We've got main stereo outs, SD card stuff that I don't care about, network and USB stuff that matters, but we got to focus on what actually really, really matters for the live performance aspects. This thing will run 16 mic inputs at once. Now, do they have any photos? It might be in the description of, yeah, this kind of stuff. So, yeah, it can do all multi-channel recording. And it is a 24-channel USB audio interface. Again, if you need an audio interface, yeah, this thing's $1,200, but a 24 in, 22 out USB audio interface for $1,200 used to be unheard of. So bear that in mind. If I didn't have, I've got a really nice recording setup. I'm going to toot my own horn there. If I didn't, something like this becomes a lot more valuable. So if you need recording, right, or if you don't have it, right, this falls again into our nice to haves. But we've got a lot of really robust stuff here. So remember how we said we need between 10 and 20? Well, like 16 is like a sweet spot. That is your sweet spot. 20 would be nice to have, because then you have extra space. But 16 inputs is brilliant. Now, the 6 outputs is great. The subgroup side of things, you'll notice there's no like subgroup stuff out here. You can basically, in these digital mixers, I think you can create as many as you kind of want. Right? Effects wise, you've got tons of options. And yeah, so something like this to me is kind of perfect for like your modern band who needs a unit that they are, especially if you're controlling yourself on stage and stuff. The one I personally use, like I said, is a Soundcraft. I use the UI16. The 24. Would I take this over the Allen and Heath with the Allen and Heath out now? Maybe. It's going to really depend on your use case. The Allen and Heath, I think, is designed a bit more for a band who happens to be running their own sound, versus the Soundcraft is more pointing towards a sound technician who might be running for multiple bands. Is kind of the vibes I get looking over some of the software in particular on both. The beauty of this one is there's no apps or anything to run it. The downside compared to something like the Allen and Heath is this doesn't have any touchscreens or anything like that on it. So you have to connect it to a secondary device to get it to do what it's supposed to do. It's great for that. The feedback suppression that it has, I think it works better than my own ear at this point. I've started using it more and more, and the notches that it does are very, very, very good in terms of like you don't really hear them, which is what you want in feedback suppression. I'm wary about running it on always. I think it works best when you do it at the beginning. But yeah, in this case, we've got 20 microphone inputs, 8 aux outputs. I think that's a little overkill But again, for what this is built for, that's actually not too surprising to see. The 16 that I use, it has 12 microphone inputs and then has 4 aux sends, which is almost perfect. I do need to use a submixer for it sometimes when I'm doing drums, because I can then run all my drums into a mixer and then into here, and then that automatically basically creates a subgroup, which ideally it would have this one. But alas, I went for the smaller. Mostly for the price at the time. I think these might have come down a bit. And you are getting, just like some of those other ones, you're getting full multi-channel recording on the 24 here. I do think Soundcraft is going to have to come up with a update for it in the near future to compete with Allen and Heath in particular. I know Behringer has a bunch of the same, rack mount, control it on an app kind of stuff. I everything I kind of heard and saw was that the Behringer ones were good, but the Allen and Heath, from what I hear, have really come out of the gate swinging, and response becomes necessary, which I think is good. Competition is good. I love my Soundcraft. I don't plan on selling it to get something like the Allen and Heath, but I wouldn't fault somebody for looking at both and being like, oh man, I gotta pick between these two. That's gonna actually be a little bit tricky. Because if I go, where's my order here? Price, low to high. Now some of these live streaming mixer things from a few of these companies, I'm actually impressed by. And like these Go XLRs, I would never use them for live, but for streaming and stuff, go hard, have fun. I think you can get more for your money if you go just with a more traditional non-streamer one, because like the streamer ones tend to, yeah. But at the same time, they're pretty good. And some of these Roland ones I've been seeing are actually sweet, where they, I don't know if this one does, but I know some of their higher end ones actually have, this one doesn't by the look of it. If you go further into the Roland stuff, you can find stuff that has a video switcher built in, which that starts becoming very worth it. Some of these Zoom ones are actually sweet. I've been very impressed with what I've seen there. They're mostly built for recording, but because they end up with a lot more outputs. Like that one has 4 headphone outputs with, I believe, individual volumes. I don't know if it has individual aux outs for them. There's the cheaper one. I've seen a few people recommend the UI16 to DJs. Just get the UI12. Somebody was saying the other day, oh, but it doesn't rack mount. It does. At least I've seen it do it. Oh, no, it doesn't. Okay. So this one can't rack mount. That is, I think, a missed opportunity. But yeah, this, unless you need it to rack mount, if you're a DJ and you're looking into one of these, just get the smaller one. You don't need 12 microphone inputs, and even if you occasionally do sound for other people, you probably won't need 12 microphone inputs. 8 is likely more than enough for most DJs who do occasional live sound. Oh, is this the one that adds? This is the one that adds the video. This is killer. I saw this doing some of my NAMM coverage, if anybody caught that. In 1, 2 through. Right, so you can have multiple video sources going, and I believe this doubles as your capture card, but then you can also use this into, like, if you have a streaming PC, you can have multiple inputs and stuff on the HDMI and all this, and yeah, these are really cool for live casting of be it streaming or other stuff. I'm trying to find the beginning of. Yeah, they got those demo units. I'm not too worried about those. I'm just trying to price compare a few things. So the Behringer XR, under $600, just slightly. These are pretty darn good. Only 8 ins for microphones with 4 aux ends. I'm actually always surprised when I see stuff like that, where you have a fairly limited microphone input section, but a very robust output section. Is always impressive. I've heard pretty darn good things about Behringer. I owned 2 Behringer mixers. I now own half of a Behringer mixer. The first one that my band ever bought, other than at one point we broke a pin off on the power supply, but can't really blame Behringer for that. I think we bent it. User error. Yeah, so I can't. It's hard to blame somebody for your own faults. That one, to this day, is still running fine, and that has been in use for over 20 years. The other one that we bought, or that I bought, died on me within 3 or 4 years of owning it. So I've had mixed results with their stuff, but one of the big things that happened with Behringer is they bought Midas and took the tech and the mic preamps of the Midas stuff, moved it into their stuff to the point that Behringer is now, I kid you not, they are a rider-friendly tour grade company, which very few of us saw coming. And I don't mean that as too much of a knock against Behringer audio products. They, comparatively now to a lot of stuff in their price point, hit the ground running, come out swinging, whatever cliche you want to use, they are good. Any brand you've never heard of on Amazon versus a Behringer product, is the Behringer one's probably going to win. Would I take a Yamaha over a Behringer? I have. That's why I have the Yamaha ones, right? And I use that as the example because, yes, I personally own a UI16. So would I take a UI16 over a XR16 every day of the week? For a few reasons, and it's not just because I am a Soundcraft dealer, but I'm not a Yamaha dealer. I'm not a Behringer dealer, and I took the Yamaha boards over the Behringer one. So I'm using that as an example rather than sounding like I'm just, rooting for my team. But I am really impressed with what Behringer has been doing, and I think it's the X32. Like I said, that is now a industry standard board. I've seen national tours, international tours actually, that are running around with that board. They're used in like every mega church ever. in unlike before, one of the big things Behringer used to compete on was price. They still do in a lot of categories. In the audio world, they kind of can't anymore because there are so many straight out of China, nobody's ever heard of them, companies that are readily available. Like, that didn't used to be a thing. It used to be the case of every now and then you would go to, a music store in a random town and you would see a mixer board from a brand you've never heard of. That kind of went away for a long while, and now it's back, but it's all online. Yeah, and some of them I hear are good, and then other ones I hear the preamps are terrible. So that's kind of my Behringer rant. Like I said, I do deal in some of their competitors, so I take everything I say with that grain of salt. And again, they have really stepped it up. They really have. And I think to say they've innovated is tricky to say, because Behringer did buy their way into being an industry standard. But, they're there now. Those X32 in particular, would never fault anybody for going that route. They are very, very, very good. I don't know about the Air series. I've never used them. But here is why. Out of these two, I would still probably aim for the UI16. The big reason is extra preamps. In this price range, in this form factor, 8 mic preamps, I don't know if I would bother. Now, if you're doing, again, more spoken events, that kind of thing, 8 preamps is probably way more than enough. If you're a singer-songwriter, a smaller ensemble, the beauty of these digital mixers, and this is going to include all of these, is they are set up where you can have, you set your mix, you set your aux ends, and you can save it. So the next time you flick it on, it's on the same settings, and you can save it. Like you can just go in, type in your band's name, and snapshot it and save it, so that the next time you go to a venue, even you can just click a button and brings everything to the levels you had before, and then you just bring your masters up and see. Okay, does that sound as good as it did last time? Okay, cool, right? It's to a point where if you're an in-ear equipped band, right? If you're doing in-ear monitors, and whether you're using the Behringer stuff, the Soundcraft stuff, any of these rack mount, and most of the non-rack mount ones and stuff can do this as well. I know some of the higher end Persona stuff can. You can set all your levels, take some like whiteout pens or something, and mark where all of your volumes should be. Tape off on your amps where your microphones should be, and you can be set up and sound checked in a matter of minutes, because as long as everybody is setting their levels to where they are supposed to be on their equipment, you put your mics and plug everything in line level that needs to be line level, hit the on switch, and you should basically be good to go. If you're doing in-ears, then you don't have to then worry about basically checking your monitors, because they should be exactly where you left them last time. You may need to tweak them a little bit because different space, different echoes, different that, blah, 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 blah. But then you have your mix for your mains. You bring that up. Pretty much done. I'll never go back. And yeah, I did a gig with one of these yesterday. It was an outdoor event. I could just walk around, get all, make sure everything sounded good, and then just sat back for the rest of the day. Did a minor tweak when partway through the day. Hey, can I get a little more guitar on my monitor? Done. From a picnic table off in the distance, just problem solved. Now, the reason I went with this unit, 2-ish reasons. Not technically because I'm a Soundcraft dealer. I actually became a Soundcraft dealer because of this mixer. But I needed 4 aux ends. I needed at least 12 mic preamps. I would have rathered it have the actual 16. 2 of the inputs are these guys here, the line level, and then another 2 are the USB player. At this price, I can forgive that. And again, I actually may down the road, because I have a mixer that has RCA outs on it, or I might look into it like a small 4-channel. For toms, I'll probably just run my toms into a submixer into these and then call it a day. And then I've got 12 inputs for the rest of the band. So my toms are not using up any of my microphone inputs, and essentially that gets me 15 mic preamps. No, 16, because I'd have 4 plus then these 12, but I'd only be using 3 of them, because you want your snare and your other stuff going. But yeah, it's getting to a point, it's hard to not recommend stuff like this, right? If you want to go Behringer, if you want to go Allen and Heath, if you want to go Soundcraft, these rack mount mixers, if you're running your own sound or if you're running somebody else's sound, in terms of just the gear you have to haul, right? The fact that I don't have to bring a channel snake makes this worth it alone. Because let's stick to Sweetwater here. I'm just going to open link a new tab. All right. I mean, I've got one of these. I do keep one of these handy. The Lil Bro. I think mine's the 50. These are nice for drums in particular because you can throw one of these in front of the drums and then you just have one snake heading back. But let's see what we've got for like a proper snake box snake here. Whirlwind's usually on the pricier side, but they have XLR to XLR snakes. Here we go. We've got a 25-foot 6-channel for 300. But we need at least a 50-foot. It's only an 8-channel. We're going to need more than that. That's only a 15-foot. I don't know, jumper. Proco, 150-foot. This is what I used to have to carry. This is probably as close as we'll get. So this is 16 by 4. So we've got 16 ins for returns is the way it generally works. You put this box on the stage. You run 150 feet of cable. This is more expensive. It's like that Behringer one was under 6. Oh, this one's less expensive than the Behringer one? I'm actually surprised at that. Just, again, because the more mic inputs, but that has more inputs. And more, no, it has the same amount of aux sends. Yeah. Like I said, I don't think you can go wrong with either. I really like mine, and I have my biases, and I will live those with those on my sleeve. But yeah, I used to have to carry something like this. Does it tell me the weight? Doesn't. So this is 150-foot cable. These weigh a ton, and this is more expensive. Now, this is 16 channel versus the 12 or so that we're using, but just it's handy. And so let's see if I can find, is there a 12 send? It's a 24 XLR 350. That's actually not too bad, but that's only 10 foot. That's for like running from a console to a recording interface or something. That's the only time you would use something like that. 12 channel, no returns. Right? So this doesn't even have your aux sends in it. Now, Whirlwind makes great cables. They are a higher end cable company by a lot of standards. But yeah, this is more expensive than going with one of these. The beauty of these digital mixers is you throw this on the stage, use this as your stage box, and then you wirelessly run to wherever you are. The alternative, now, do they have PreSonus on here? Just because I know they do it. And they make some really cool stuff. I am a PreSonus dealer, blah, 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 disclosures. But like these mixers are amazing. Because PreSonus always had the Studio Live stuff. And those are great mixers. Especially if you want the nice combination feel of analog and digital. But once you move up to these guys. Now this is a B-stock unit. I think they're planning a revamp. I'm not 100% sure. But this is a 32 channel. It's got 24 on the front, and then I believe it has the rest on the back. Those are mixed outputs. So 24 on the front. I'm curious where they get the rest of those input numbers from. Unless they can. Oh. 24R. Oh, so bit of a. I see what they're getting at. Never mind. So this is 24 inputs, but 32. I'm not 100% sure why it says 32 channel, but it's only saying that. Oh, it's because it can take extra inputs digitally, is my guess. Now, this is technically a rack mount digital mixer, but network audio and control kind of work differently here. I believe these can also be used as a stage box. So what some people will do is they will put one of these on the stage, you can do control into a router and then send that, or you can just run one cable. Nice, thin, light. You can get 100 foot of it for a couple bucks. Oh, it's great. And just run Cat5 to like a laptop or whatever. Yeah, like these. There's a really good. It's not Pro Production. I can't remember now. There is a really, really good YouTube channel that does videos on production, and they actually moved to using the these live Persona stuff. The reason that I really got turned on to them was because of them. They're using those in their recording studio because they can put one of these in. They don't have to run big multi-core snakes through the walls and then run into issues. Like if you run a snake like that too close to electrical, you will get weird interferences and stuff. I've worked in studios that's a major problem. But then they used one of these guys. I think they used the bigger brother of this to control it because they wanted a control surface of sorts. So the mixer board, I think they had this guy. And someday, if I'm ever doing enough live sound to justify it, I will have one of these. But at $3,000 American, and I live in Canada, even as a dealer, right, the margins on stuff like this is not as big as a lot of people think they are. I'll just put that out there. So me buying this at cost doesn't mean I can just go pick one of these up tomorrow and justify it. That said, if I could pick one of these up tomorrow and justify it, I would in a heartbeat. These mixers are fucking amazing. Every time I see one of these, I'm incredibly jealous. So we've got a full force, full fat, automated fader digital mixer, right? Mechanical faders, I believe is the term that they actually will physically move. So you can pre-program, like you can sound check all of your bands for the day and like switch through them. So if you can get a lot of this stuff set up ahead of time, and it's utterly amazing. They have an incredibly robust input system here on the back. We've got 32 line level, or 32 mic/line. Yeah, mono sum out, talkback mic that's not using a channel. We've got main outputs, and then we've got all of these mix outs, so you can run up to 12 monitors off of this. You would never need, well, I say that. I've had people request up to 8 monitors. Then when I send them the bill, like, here's the quote, because you want me to bring 8 stage monitors with me. Oh, you charge for the extra stage monitors? Yeah, I have to fit them in a truck and carry them on and off stage and bring the extra cabling and make sure that the power doesn't go every time that somebody hits a power cord. Okay, like there's more to it than just, oh, like you can do it, so it's the same price, right? No. I tend not to charge any extra for like 3 to 4, right? Because to me, 4 is kind of ideal for a band. Usually I get away with 3. But having that many, this is oftentimes used for broadcasting. If you have, say, a show happening, and then you have to do a separate mix for the room, and then you throw headphones on, or if you have studio monitors, like near field monitors, to adjust for, like we're sending this out to like a TV station or something. That's where like these extra mixes really come in handy. Oh, they actually have 16 mix outs. Oh my god! And then sub outputs. Cool. Aux inputs galore. Yeah, like this thing is just massive. And then you can network it. I believe, don't quote me on this because I have not done it, but I believe you could use one of those other units as a stage box and then do the audio network stuff here, or the control stuff here. I don't know exactly because it's not my area of expertise. You can basically use this X32 or 32SX, I should say, because the X32 is the Behringer one I was talking about earlier. You can use the the Cat 5 cabling, or I think you can do it over wireless because it's just control. I don't know if it's audio. Though, well, no, some of that will be. So it'll be transmitting over. So I probably would hardwire it. But you can control that stage box, which sounds like an expensive endeavor until you realize, well, 50 feet of 12 channel is like $650 from a reputable brand for a multi-core like this. So being able to avoid having to haul all of those cables, right? Especially if you have to be like I was just at a stadium show about a month ago. Wasn't running sound. I got to be there just to enjoy. And yeah, the mixing console was probably 300 or 400 feet away from the band. Do you really want to haul 400 extra feet of microphone cabling? God, no. And that's also why, like in the past, it's less common for smaller bands now. They used to have they would use a splitter snake, which was even heavier and even more expensive, and you would split all of your mic inputs on the stage to a separate monitor mixer to the side of the stage, because you would want somebody else handling the monitor mix. What a pain. Stuff like this, like I said, and those I will say, like I said, like I love this Persona stuff just because I know it and I trust the brand. I've used, like, I still have Persona stuff in my studio that's 20 years old and it's still running just fine. The Behringer X32s, do they have them on here? Oh, they got the wing. X32 compact. Aha. X32. Now, don't let that price tag fool you. If you're new to mixer boards, that may seem very expensive. For what these can do, similar to that Presonus one that I was just pointing to, that's worth the price. This is actually, I would say, like, if 15, 20 years ago you could get this amount of power for $3,000, yeah. A used one for 1,600. If you're watching this and you don't go buy that, I'm going to be disappointed in you if you're considering one of these, because that's actually ridiculously good. But yeah, similar to what I was getting at with that Presonus one, we've got a massive amounts of ins and outs. Remote control stuff. We've got MIDI in and out. We've got a 550A. Yeah, like this is getting into even like audio stuff that goes beyond my area of expertise. But oh boy, and yeah, 16 outputs. Like I said, there's a reason why like I said, every like mega church ever uses one of these, because all of those outputs, all that adjustability, all the savability for, we do the same thing every week, but with like a band that needs to be mildly sound checked and make sure that it sounds good for whoever's, etc. Like those kind of things. They're using these, and yeah, it's a Midas was making these for a while. Behringer bought them and keeps making them, and from what I hear, they have kept it up. The rack mount version, I don't know anything about, so I couldn't tell you if that one's worth it or not. But yeah, these X32s are an industry standard for a reason. I probably, personally, given my experiences, would take a Presonus over it. But it really depends, because like again, very rider friendly. Like if you say, yeah, well, we know we have an X32 board, they'll just know exactly what you mean. Where, oh, we've got a 32, was it 32SX from PreSonus. Some musicians are gonna know what the heck you're talking about. Some aren't. But yeah, I'm a big fan of both. But this is why when people talk about Behringer as like an industry standard, this is the board they mean. They're not necessarily talking about their Air. They're talking about the X32. That thing has completely changed the landscape. Yeah. Anyway, speaking of controlling stuff, because like I said, I'm what PreSonus is doing with the ability to have like a stage box, like throw one of these digital mixer, one rack unit. 16 channels total, rest are on the back. 6 mix outputs plus your mains, right? Something like this controlled, and I believe you can, yeah, like I think it's I want to say it's a program on that you put on the PC or Mac, and then yeah, they do like all the app stuff and things like that. Yeah, and then a full software package. So you can just do so much with this stuff. Like I said, like I have my biases because because I'm a PreSonus dealer, but because I like it. Oh, and $900 American, limited time offer. Yeah, these are, if you're running live sound. I still think, like, I think I made the right call for me, but man, being able to take something like that is 16 inputs, run a single Cat5 cable, right? Because yeah, this is $900, but you're saving yourself however much in cabling to then connect it to, say, this guy, because you don't need the massive guys. Although someday, but I don't want to haul that either. I'd probably get something like this guy. Connect this thing up to a computer. You get all the control and stuff of like best of both worlds. You can use this as the controller for this, so you don't need any computers involved if you don't want to. Huge, robust system, minimal cabling. They're the future. And yeah, like for me, if I had $3,000 below, I'd probably do one of the stage box things like that with that guy. I think Soundcraft has a stage box variant because Soundcraft does everything all the way up to like those pro level tour things. Like yeah, like this is their answer to those other units. 80 channel. Oh, God, never run out of channels. And I do like units that do like this kind of stuff where you have these rotary knobs. So when you select one of your channels down here, you then have like a full parametric EQ for that channel up top here, rather than the more traditional stuff that would all be down here. And the big thing that Soundcraft has at their disposal is that they are affiliated. I don't know if who owns who or if it's their parent company or whatever, but DBX and Lexicon built in, because I've had very, very good luck with the effects and stuff on my UI16. So if I was to go for these, as much as I like the PreSonus ones, I'd have to do some reading. I'd have to do some research to know if I should go Soundcraft. But I had other things I wanted to talk about today. So I'm gonna flip over. Right. Flip over to here. I know this is my actual direction, and now my shirt's not mirrored. I bought a new laptop. New to me. Specifically for audio and DJing. And it's huge. This is a 17-inch behemoth from Dell. Specifically, I believe it's the 7710. Dell Precision. This is something I highly recommend you keep an eye out for. Not this particular unit. But if you are into audio production or DJing, a lot of times I see people recommending gaming laptops and stuff, which can be really good. Especially, I found this out the hard way. Virtual DJ needs a high-end graphics card, as they put it. It says on the website anything from a 1050 and above from NVIDIA should work. This has a much better, I think almost double the power graphics card in it compared to a 1050, which isn't hard to do. The 1050, not a very good graphics card. However, the card in here is a Quadro, which is NVIDIA's line of non-gaming graphics cards. So it's better for CAD, it's better for just general computation, as opposed to, you know, shaders in a video game. But why do this over other options? The big one is I was using thin and lights for a while, and almost all of mine are starting to have weird, quirky issues, battery problems, etc., and are a pain in the butt to repair. If you're anything like me, I love being able to repair stuff myself. There's a latch on the back of this. There's my battery. Now, this I bought used, so this section here is currently empty. I have a tray on order. I found one on AliExpress from, because these were quite popular, but aren't necessarily now. I was able to find the part for less than 20 bucks. There's a sled that goes in there that carries a SATA drive. So I can just add an extra hard drive to this toollessly. That's cool. Now, why did I buy used instead of just going new? 2 reasons. 1, I'm broke. 2, I'm cheap. And 3, I don't need a lot of modern processing power for what I am doing. I just need reliability. And yes, new likely gets you a bit more of that. But going with a laptop like this, that is, I often call these a fleet laptop, but technically they are a workstation laptop. They are made for work. And as much as, like, gaming laptop versus a work laptop, if your game crashes, yeah, you might leave a bad review on Reddit. Work-wise, if a company goes and they buy 20 or 30 of these for, say, their engineers, and a bunch of them start having issues, they're never going with that brand again, right? So they tend to have a lot of robust features more aimed at a pro crowd. One of the big things I love, especially compared to the thin and lights I was using, actual USB ports across the side here. On the other side, I have a USB-C, USB. I've got DisplayPort out, a mini DisplayPort, unfortunately, and full-sized HDMI, which for me was important. I needed something for doing video out for a variety of occasions. I've got a big video switcher I'm going to be experimenting with, and having that was a big plus. Repairability. Nothing in here is soldered in place. I can replace the RAM. I can replace the main hard drive as well as add an additional hard drive toollessly, which is sweet. But the main hard drive, I do need to pull out a screwdriver. I believe these feet do have to pop out to do that. But yeah, a lot of these, like actual fan slots across the back, an Ethernet port. Right, I've been using these thin and light laptops for so long. I forgot what it's like to have proper I/O and not need adapters. And yeah, now this was about 200 bucks Canadian. For what it is in its condition, that was a really good deal. You do have to be careful. A lot of times with these fleet style laptops, the reason I call them a fleet style is companies are going to be buying 40 of these, maybe even 100 or maybe 200, distributing them out, and they buy them in bulk, which means they decommission them in bulk. Buying them in bulk does mean they want them to be repairable because they don't want to have to like replace a bunch of them if little problems start happening or if parts and stuff like all that. So I found this at my local electronic recycler, where chances are a bunch of these got decommissioned and they just made a bunch of them work using parts from each other. You do have to be a little bit careful because of that. The batteries on these, technically replaceable, right? It's got all the model number and all that stuff. I can track it down. But if I buy it from a non-reputable source, they will often, it's kind of like, if you remember some of those stories of old cars where you could run them in reverse, the odometer would go backwards. You can sort of do that with these batteries, where you can reset some of the really minor memory stuff to do with them, where basically the laptop thinks that it's a brand new battery, even though it's not. So if you don't know what you're looking for, it can be actually difficult to make sure you're getting what you need. But yeah, I'm carrying around 60 plus pound speakers, 100-pound subwoofers, if not heavier. My cable bag weighs more than this thing does to a regular small gig. So for me, a big laptop that has a lot of I/O was 100% worth it. And having, like I said, having an Ethernet port on it, that's important to me. Because when I'm doing more crucial sound stuff, I don't know if I'm gonna bother doing wireless if I can do wired for some of them, right? It's just having that robust. I know this thing is plugged in. There's nothing that can happen to interrupt my internet connection unless my computer actually self-destructs, is crucial to me. So, yeah. For DJing and stuff like that, I'm a little less partial to these compared to something like a gaming laptop. Because like I was saying earlier, the Quadro in here, very good card, takes a ton of load off of the CPU if you're doing anything that's video related, but the drivers are different. So even though this is a faster card, like I said, than a 1050, it won't, Virtual DJ won't accept that as an answer. It thinks that this card is slower and isn't using it to its full potential. Even though we've got 4 gigs of RAM in the card, I believe, interestingly, I think the card in here can actually take 4 gigs of RAM from the laptop, and if it needs more than 4 gigs of RAM, it'll actually basically borrow RAM space. And yeah, like I said, about $200 American, because I think it was 240 Canadian or something like that. And it's got quad core 8-thread processor, decent speed, nothing compared to some of the, like, if you go brand new, a modern i5, maybe even a modern i3 should outdo some of these older laptops. But having that graphics card in there, 4 gigs of RAM, and a decent amount of power, like I said, like, again, nothing to really write home about in terms of, like, I'm not going to be gaming on this, but for what I do, it actually is really nice for certain video applications. Proper I/O. And yeah, for DJing, I probably would go with a less expensive, more modern laptop, because again, the graphics card in here didn't do what I anticipated it doing. It will work for video output, so doing like music videos and stuff, I shouldn't have any issues there. It did come at this price, 16 gigs of RAM, DDR4, so pretty good there. Only 256 gig hard drive, but that is, or solid state drive, but NVMe with a toolless swappable SATA drive port. And I've got a spare 120 gig SATA drive, and I'm looking into some like 500 gigs, so I can really deck this thing out for not a whole lot of money. And yeah, I've seen these going for quite a bit more than I paid. Your mileage may vary, but yeah, I would not, if you are a sound technician doing some video stuff, or if you need like a really robust, dedicated, this is my work laptop for recording video, that type of stuff in professional environments, these workstation laptops, just make sure that the video card is what you need, and I think you'll find they will often be preferable to the gaming equivalents. A big thing you get on the gaming laptops versus these is a better screen. The screen on this, though, is designed for work, so it is a very, very good matte, very, very good matte finish. I'm running a ring light, right? Where's my ring? Right, like it's not as much glare as you would expect off of a ring light in these situations. So from a like purely just looking at it for enjoyment perspective, the screens on these aren't as good, but they are made for a good experience in terms of professional environment. So the screen, you're not losing a ton, but you're not getting like, I'm sorry, DJs, you just have to accept you do not need 144 hertz refresh rate on your screen, and you are paying for that when you buy a higher end laptop or gaming laptop. There is no RGB going on here. The keyboard is backlit. That's all I need. I don't need to pay extra for RGB. The cooling solution on here is very, very nice, very robust. And because I can get to all my components, because for laptops like these, people are willing to make concessions in terms of weight and size, it is a lot easier to get in and fix anything if I need to re-thermal paste anything and stuff like that. Yeah, so there's a lot of big, really good reasons to go for like a workstation laptop if you don't need a consumer grade graphics card. That's the only downside to these. And I think some of them you can get a like a gaming graphics card in them. But the Quadros, they're great, but a lot of consumer software doesn't know what to do with it because the drivers are different, so they just don't really work with it as well. If Virtual DJ ever watches this, I'm hoping they know, hey, Quadros are out there, and that's an untapped market of laptops to work with because you're really good about compatibility, guys. But yeah, I highly do. I highly recommend some of these more workstation grade laptops. Not just work laptops, right? Like business laptops are a whole different thing. 99% of people who own a laptop should probably just have a Chromebook and just be using Google Docs. If all you're doing is checking your email and typing up the occasional Word document, that's you don't need something like this. But for me, I need the processing power, I need the reliability, I need the cooling because I do a lot of outdoor stuff. So, yeah, at the 200 or whatever I paid for this thing, I am stoked. It does have a giant brick of a power supply. The battery on this is actually in pretty good shape. I have gotten 2 or 3 hours of use out of it on a charge, which is nice to see for a used laptop. But yeah. Anyway, your mileage may vary. I'm happy with it. But I just recommend 2 things there. 1, workstation laptops, and 2, don't be afraid of refurbished and or laptops from a recycler, especially in this style. I would be weary about getting a thin and light, everything soldered in place, etc., from a refurbished site because who knows, right? You can almost do more harm than good opening up some laptops. I've got one in the other room that is toast. I'm going to try to open it up and see if I can figure out what's up with it. Like it just simply won't turn on. So it could be someone got jostled, loose ribbon cable somewhere. But my computer at work is about to self-destruct, which is why I bought this one. And yeah, its fan is just running at 100% speed all the time, just word processing. So I have a suspicion it could just be thermal paste is dried up or something, because it's been my daily driver for quite a few years. But I'm also getting blue screens of it not even going into the boot menu. It's just saying, hey, you don't have any drives installed. Uh-oh, right? Being able to open it up, replace parts can be worth it if you care and if you want to go in and be able to DIY some stuff like that. but this is a much longer one of these than I normally do. So I'm going to get out of here. Thank you for sticking around and watching. And, yeah. I can go have some lunch. So talk to you next time.